Welcome to the Kynective Media Podcast, and I'm your host, Jules Nadalin. Today, we'll be diving into a conversation around cybersecurity with Laura Payne, CEO of White Tuque. We'll be discussing topics like stress, responsibility, how to enter the field, and the human cost behind the scam. Laura, it is great to have you here, but before we get into cybersecurity, I'd love to rewind a bit and talk a little bit about how you got into the field.
Sure. So I started my career while I was still a student. I was a co-op student at the Bank of Montreal as part of my engineering degree. So just to back up a little bit, I was always interested in lots of things, but never really found like a specific thing that I gravitated into as a particular passion. So I chose a program at university that's called Systems Design Engineering, and it's literally they take a little bit of everything, learn a bit of all the different engineering, and learn how to put it all together. And my co-op terms at Bank of Montreal were in an IT shop, but I was actually looking at process work and how people would coordinate and work together to make sure that they had good outcomes through changes, looking at incidents and so on. So I went to work for them full time when I graduated and continued doing that sort of process work in IT for about 3.5 years. And a security opportunity came open, and my manager and mentors at the time there said, "We really think you should take a look at the security thing. I think you'd probably be really good to do it." And I was certainly my interest was piqued, and so I went out and I joke, but I don't joke, that I bought the CISSP for dummies, and for if you're not in security, which most people are not, the CISSP is sort of like that you're tall enough to ride certification.
Okay. I was literally going to ask you, what does that mean?
Yeah,
what did you
say? Certified Information Security Systems Professional is what it stands for. So, and the For Dummies series, literally from the For Dummies series, and it's kind of your good overview. I wouldn't recommend it as your study guide if you're going for the certification, but it's a good way to get kind of a handle on all the things. So I read it over the weekend and went into the interview on Monday, and that was how I got into security. Trial by fire a little bit. So,
trial by fire. You just threw yourself into the fire, literally.
Yeah.
And what was the next step in your career after working for the bank?
Yeah. So I spent, let's see here. I was there until 2020. So almost 2 decades.
Wow.
Working in different roles. So I gained a lot of breadth of experience. Large enterprises is excellent, of course, for being able to find different roles, but still be in the same company. So you build a lot of experience without having to figure out a new company every time you do a different job. And in 2020, probably most notably in most folks' minds for being when we started the COVID lockdowns. And but even just before that, I was starting to think, where do I want to go next? And that was when a friend of mine, who I had also worked with at the bank, he had joined a smaller company, and they were looking for somebody to head up their consulting practice there. And it was sort of take all the skills that I had built from a security perspective, but now apply it to many different industries, different sizes of companies, different maturity levels. It was, and so that was really exciting. To be able to jump out and do that, and also expose myself to what it's like being in a small business, relative, and going from a company of 50,000 to a company of 100 was fun, actually.
A little more intimate.
Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, there's nobody to pass the buck off to in a lot of cases. There's, in a large enterprise, you're used to processes and, this team is supposed to handle that. So you make sure you play well with others in the sandbox and pass the ball around. And then you have to make sure other people are still, playing the game. Sometimes they thought they were going home and you're like, no, we're still playing the game. But getting those things done. Well, now it's just you, sometimes, or there isn't a rule. So you're making up the rules as you go. And it's, anyway, it was an interesting experience and led me to where I am now at White Tuque.
Amazing. Do you want to tell us a little bit about White Tuque?
Yeah, so we are 5 years old now. We're a cybersecurity consulting and services firm based in Ontario. We have customers in Canada, the US, and the Caribbean. And we really like to make sure that we are bringing pragmatic and practical security to whoever we work with. And we work with companies of all sizes and across a number of different industries. And it's again, bringing that flavor of the spirit of small company where we got to get things done and we need to do the right things that reduce your risk from a security perspective, but also bringing that maturity that a number of us are past large enterprise employees. So bringing that maturity of execution that comes with that experience.
And I'm sure you have, like, it must be wonderful to go for something so linear where you're dealing with one company and having a very diverse experiences with all different sizes and models of business and approaching them completely in a different mindset.
Yeah, we really like the part where as we get to know a customer and how their business works, what's important to them, how their customers value security and what they bring to the table, that we're able to then take all of the principles and our skills and knowledge and our methodology and apply it into those spaces. Certainly keeps it fresh. You're never bored working with different customers. Sometimes it's a challenge. That's a fact of life. Anybody who works in any customer facing role knows that. But the challenge is what keeps it interesting.
Thinking about the last 20 years of your career, like what stands out as the biggest change for you right now?
I think that it's a little bit cliche, but the pace of change, of course, has always been accelerating. We have bemoaned in security forever that technology is changing so much faster now than it was before. But I think what we're seeing now really is a shift, and it's not so much about technology. And we won't talk about the two letters that predominate all discussions about technology right now, but there's just this level of uncertainty about what is happening right now. What should I be doing next? Where should I be investing resources as a company? And investment is a big part of the conversation about security because it's always one of those areas where you spend the money, and if you've spent it well, the outcome is nothing happens.
Okay. That's a different scenario. Nothing happens.
Right?
And you spent money.
That's right.
That's a positive.
But that's the positive because the things that happen when you don't spend the money are all negative and downside. Now, I'm being a little bit blunt in that if security money is spent well, it should actually have some positive outcomes that you do see besides just no incidents, right? A good program, people feel more confident. Your controls are smooth and efficient. Good security controls actually can make things easier. When you do things well, they're more seamless and they're more smooth. But in general, the question around investment is always, okay, how much am I spending now? And how do I know that I'm getting what I thought I would get for the money spent? So, that I think just that level of uncertainty is a big change now. And the number of things that have to be considered. So security is not a game where you can just put all of your eggs in one basket, and make one control really, really strong, and we'll catch up the other ones later. You kind of have to have everything across the board working at a reasonable level, and then you can work to raise the level on specific controls where you have more risk or where you see potentially more benefit. But you can't just let one area slide because that will inevitably be the area that is the entry point for your breach.
Makes complete sense. Someone I was talking to recently made an analogy of healthcare in comparison to cybersecurity. Like it's almost like you're a healthcare system and you've got all these viruses and illnesses coming at you and you have to be preventative.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it's a cure all, right?
Exactly.
But it's going to at least navigate the path and maybe prevent. Would you say that's true? That's a good analogy? Healthcare is definitely a common analogy for us to lean on. Because people understand healthcare. Yeah. Everybody has a body, so that makes it easy to understand. And there are all the different levels, right? There's the things you do personally to take care of yourself. There's the hygiene things that you do, and everybody has different levels of expectation
as much as we all like to think that we all have certain similar standards of hygiene to everybody else, that's not the fact. Everybody has different levels of what they're willing to accept or tolerate or not, and different outcomes. And in spite of doing the best hygiene, having a great diet, great exercise, like you could do everything right, and you can still have an incident because of either external factors or just the way your body's built. And that
you can break a bone.
Exactly. And security practitioners often get a rap, and sometimes deserved, for being the department of no, and trying to do all risk prevention by just not engaging. And the fact is that in business, as in, personal life, that is not a plausible situation. You have to be out there and doing things. So it's accepting and understanding where your risks are and doing the reasonable things to try to prevent. And then having, on the flip side, we know things will happen. So how do we build resilience so that we can respond quickly? We can get the help we need. We can manage the outcomes as best we can.
Since we're talking about protecting yourself and your business, and this is one of the things we're trying to explore in this podcast, is trust. And I feel like this is the perfect start of this conversation, because cybersecurity is the foundation of trust. So right now in business, are you seeing, a new kind of scam right now? Are there any trends? Is there anything you can share with our audience about your experience in this field of specialty that you work in?
Yeah. And trust is, as you said, it's so foundational, because every relationship is about trust. It's about establishing an expectation of behavior. If it's transactional, that whatever was agreed will be followed through on. And that is exactly what cyber criminals try to exploit in order to transact, right? And we see a lot of fraud, and fraud and cybersecurity are adjacent. They're not exactly the same field, but a lot of cybersecurity controls are in place to help prevent fraud. And we do see a huge acceleration in the variety and types of attacks that are being facilitated by AI, unfortunately. And so we often use the phrase trust but verify. You don't want to be a jerk to everybody because you're paranoid that everything coming at you is not real. but those things that you can do. So, I mean, a lot of things that we're seeing now, and we were just chatting about this actually on another podcast I was recording earlier this month, how there's a lot more targeted emails using people's profiles online to identify people who are in situations where they are potentially a little bit isolated due to whatever situation or whatever role they have, and easy to engage emotionally, either with excitement or with fear. And in the business space, I actually see more of that engagement, like if we're trying to engage professionals, in that excitement. The number of, quote, family offices who have shown up with .help as their domain suffix, the end of their domain. So, family office, super .help, right? Emailing out to say, hey, we've noticed your company, CEO, and we think it might be a really interesting fit for our portfolio. Would you like to engage in a conversation? And that message itself, and take any flavor of that, right? Somebody reaching out, hey, I've noticed you. I have a thing I think you might be able to be, or you might be interested in. Can I get you more information, or can I get you engaged in a conversation? That message itself is actually pretty benign. There's not anything technically malicious in that. There usually aren't links to click. They're not asking you to open a file yet. But once they engage with you, that's when they're going to work towards whatever it is, whether it's trying to go the malware route through links or sharing files that are malicious, or whether they want to engage in a way that they will get you to send some money in exchange for hopes of future money, right? All of these things that happen. And so it's harder to pinpoint down exactly what your next attack or your next fish will be. But the principles are all the same, right? If somebody is trying to engage with you and it's something where you probably wouldn't talk to other people about it right away, those are red flags that, you've got somebody who's trying to get on your good side for their reasons, right?
Noted. Nick, I'm going to look a little closer now every time I get one of those emails that are like, hey, they're emailing, for example, our general mailbox.
Yep.
For our business, and they're like it's very excited. They're like, we think you'll be a great fit, right? So that's the hook. They're trying to build your trust, right?
Absolutely. And again, the tools that are out there now make it almost trivial to do the research to sound like they really have done something, but it's all automated.
Okay.
Yeah.
This immediately makes me think of something we talked about sort of before we hopped on this podcast, was the human cost behind the online scam. It was something I really hadn't thought about, that a lot of these people don't choose to be behind these computers or making those phone calls. Do you want to talk a little bit about the human cost?
Yeah. So as much as we've seen a rise of technology being used to perpetrate scams, a lot of these scams, technology will be how they get the hook, but at some point they're going to pivot to a person. And lots of people are aware of, the call centers that do scams. And India has had a long reputation of being one of those locations that had paid basically scam centers. And so people working for this. And so those scammers generally know and are engaged and understand that what they are doing is taking away something from somebody else and that they are getting compensated for it. What we have seen emerging in the last few years as part of the global issues with human trafficking is we're seeing call centers where people are not being compensated. They are being held hostage and are being made to do these calls. And these are not resort locations in the sense of their surroundings and how they are kept and treated. There are consequences when they fail to meet quotas and targets. And so it's changed for people who are aware. There is still, I think, when we think about how we respond to scams and scam calls, there's that sort of jokey, haha, like, let's just waste their time or play around with them and so on. And for people who are criminal and doing bad things, I have no concerns about wasting their time. The problem is now you can't tell, is this somebody who is a criminal or somebody who's a victim? And sometimes the lines are a little bit blurred between both, right? Sometimes people take these jobs, even if they are paid and not in the human trafficking realm, because it's the only alternative left to them.
It's the only option.
Yeah. So the efforts around fighting these things are focused more on not who the individuals are, but who's at the top of the chain, right?
Yeah, the larger
picture. Yeah.
And hopefully we can, there's a way to suppress that action and maybe get these individuals who are being held unwillingly to a safer space. And honestly, that I didn't even have that thought till you brought it up as a conversation.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow,
and
that's
when
really,
we talk about
really
these
horrible.
places, yeah, and these are not like small compounds. This isn't like, somebody's basement in the middle of suburbia. These are whole cities practically that have been built housing people who have been taken against their will. And just, one of the trickle consequences of this major issue that we have around human trafficking right now.
Okay. Well, that just makes me think about, the kind of stress and responsibility and resiliency you have to have in this industry. And since, you're always up against new threats and things are changing. So how do you keep balance in a career like this for yourself?
That is a really good question.
I know. I like to ask the hard ones. I'm sorry.
And you know what? Mental health in general is, it's a challenge right now. So a lot of it is, there's an aspect of self-care. There's having things outside of this space that you engage in. I think the healthiest security professionals do things that are very tangible and very in the world. So that, the cliche of touch grass, but it's having hobbies, projects, and things that are tangible and real in this space. It's having and maintaining a network of family and friends, people who you can talk to and confide in, who are not going to burden you back. It's mostly about listening. That's 90% of what people need, is a safe space to share, but they don't need, and let's face it, 90% of the problems that are external to us that cause us stress, we can't solve them. So the person we're talking to probably isn't going to be able to solve them either, but just being able to have that communication, because isolation really is where the damage is done, I think.
Okay. Yeah. When we look at other industries, for example, people who get into social work or therapy, they say there's like a 5-year burnout rate. Is there something like that in your industry as well?
I was definitely for people who spend their time incident responding or directly engaging in the underworld and on the dark web forums, because you are directly in contact with all of the negativity. There is a much higher burnout rate on those sides. So we do see a lot of cases where if people are going to stay in this industry long term, they find ways to kind of, if they do that work, they find ways to transition to some other security works that either it's more proactive or consultative or leadership. Because and I think we see the same in law enforcement as well. The burnout is less, less acute, I think is what we see there, but still very prevalent as well.
As a leader in, like a CEO in cybersecurity, is that one of the responsibilities you find most challenging? Are there any specifics you could share with us?
Yeah. So because my company focuses more on the preventative and proactive side, I think right now our bigger stressors are actually just around handling a business itself, right? So there's 2 stressors right now that I get to live with, right? There's the actual security work, which for the most part, actually on the proactive side is quite rewarding and nice to see people making improvements and building more resilience. But then there's the side of, just handling a company and all the things that come with that are positive and stressful at the same time. So, certainly, managing that stress and being aware, and working with employees to be clear that we're there to support them. And I think the other thing too is, across any industry, right? Just as being a good leader, helping provide security for employment, being clear that, if things are going on in their personal lives, that we want them to have the time and space to be able to handle that, because when employees are stressed, they're just not able to perform at their best. And we want the best outcomes for them and for our customers.
That's great. That's definitely should be a foundation for every scenario and every business. Cybersecurity has been predominantly male dominant, correct?
It is. It has. Yeah.
So you're a woman leading into cybersecurity. So anything you want to share around or advice to women thinking about this career in a male-dominated space?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a tricky one. I think maybe there's a lot of imposter syndrome across the board, men and women, and even in a way, it kind of hits before people start, right? So they sort of self-select out, like, oh, maybe I'm not technical enough, or I don't have enough depth, and we do know that tends to be more of a challenge for women looking at, moving into different roles, that they do tend to be more self-selecting out as opposed to like, I'll just throw my hat in and go for it. So I think if you're interested in a career like security, and just to back up, things that make a good security professional: curiosity, a desire to protect, the ability to communicate well, the ability to understand risk. Technical is it's like number 5 on my thumb, right? As I'm counting, right? I started at my pinky for people who can't see me. But those are all characteristics that are prevalent among female professionals. So there's really nothing that should, if you think those things are characteristics that resonate with you and that you like in your career, high integrity, right? Wanting to do the right thing, then it could be an option to talk to somebody, male or female, doesn't matter, somebody who you admire what they do, find out more about it. And then, I would say, if you're interested, then it's time to get more deep into where are the potential gaps that you would like to close before applying, what roles interest you. That's the other challenge. Cybersecurity is such a broad field. There are so many different kinds of roles. So when people say like, which thing should I focus on? I'm like, there's no like magic bullet, like this is your surefire entry to the field. The other thing I do recommend is look at things that are adjacent to what your experience already has. And if you transferable skills, right? So you can, and then how to articulate how you're going to bring that in. I'm not going to candy coat it. It's a challenging field to enter because, and this is back to the trust theme. If somebody's hiring you, they are trusting you to not screw it up. And so there is a fairly big burden of responsibility, both for the employee and the employer, to make a good match. So you'll also probably be looking at who in your network can vouch for you, or even potentially is your first like gateway to making a hire, right? That personal connection makes a big difference. But, and so that, some of that's not in, a lot of that's not specific to being female in the field. But mostly not. I've been fortunate. I will say I don't feel like I specifically lost out on opportunity because of gender or because of discrimination. I think I've been fortunate. There were people along the way, and part of how I built my career was more where I'm getting antsy and opening my eyes to where's the next opportunity, and just being prepared for when a good opportunity that felt like the right fit presented itself, that I could move forward into it. That's not how it works for everybody. Some people are much more directed and passionate. They have a specific goal that they want to achieve, and they're going to have to navigate in a different way than I did. And I know women who have experienced direct discrimination or subtle discrimination that they know has impacted their careers. And that is one of the challenges that we do face, is trying to find how do we improve that situation across the board. A lot of it is, I think, when managers are hiring, they look for people who feel culturally similar to be a good fit into the team. And if you have a team that has a culture that really doesn't jive with those differences and that diversity, then that's where we see those problems really surface as far as discussions about promotions or hiring decisions in the first place. And that culture piece is the hardest to crack, because if the culture is working for the people who are in it, why would they want to change?
Yeah. And most people are resilient, are not open to change when everything's comfortable.
Right. It's working. Why would I shake it up?
Yeah. Why would I shake it up? On another podcast too, going back to, when you're thinking of applying for a job, one of my guests said that really when employers put out a job posting, it's a wish list.
That is so true.
That's what they wish to get. So really, if someone listening to our podcast right now and they're thinking of entering the cybersecurity industry, is like, that's a wish list. If you've got some of those boxes checked off, still move forward. Yeah.
And there's some value in understanding which ones are more likely to be really firm. Like, so having a basic certification, and as much as a certification doesn't tell you if a person's a great worker or anything else, but it makes it a lot easier for the employer to say, okay, at least I have something to show that when I looked at this person, there was some due diligence, that they should have some basic knowledge and capability in this space. So now I can focus on the person and how they're going to be able to mesh in my environment, as opposed to wondering, do they have technical background and skills? I think, not that a stigma will get you into, or not this, not that a certification will get you into your job, but I think I used the phrase "tall enough to ride" earlier when I was talking about the CISSP, right?
Yeah.
There is an aspect to just being tall enough to ride.
You have to be over 4 feet to get on the ride. I think it was, I remember that from the amusement park for some reason.
Yeah.
Laura, is there anything else you want to share with us today that I maybe have not brought up in this conversation?
Wow, there's always so much that I could talk about.
I'm sure.
That's all. I'm just going to go back a little bit to the how to protect yourself. And this is my PSA that I go out, anytime I go out, right? We participate in an online world. So protecting your accounts and taking it seriously, even though it's painful and a road bump, to have good account hygiene around not reusing your passwords, enabling multi-factor authentication anywhere that you can. Just make it harder for people, because people will get past your human defenses. It happens to all of us. The most susceptible is the person who thinks they can't be tricked. I guarantee you. Because when they fall, they will fall harder, and it will hurt a lot more than the person. We know people who are gullible to anything.
Yeah.
They are used to being tricked.
Yeah. They're like, oh, again? I did it again.
Exactly. But anyway, so set up those additional layers of defense that are going to help catch the thing when you didn't catch it in the first place.
Even though we grunt and moan every time we have to authenticate something from our phone, from the computer, and those added layers of security are definitely in our benefit.
100%. And then I think the other thing is just as hard as it is, if you see somebody who is in the midst of a struggle, or is they're being scammed, right? They're being hooked in. Don't give up on them. As much as, it's going to be hard to watch them. You may not be able to do anything to stop them. We are adults. And so, and especially if we're dealing with our parents, our aunts and uncles who are, in that generation where,
yes,
they don't want to listen to the younger
and they're also
people.
Being heavily targeted.
Very heavily targeted. And for all of those reasons, right? It's harder to influence their opinions once they've gone in a different direction, because they are used to being the elder. They're used to being the one giving the advice, not taking it. But don't give up. Be there for them. Help them where you can. And
keep them safe.
Keep them safe if you can.
Make them trust you.
And be there as a landing pad if you can't keep them safe.
Yeah. And if they don't listen, just be there for emotional support as well. Yeah. Laura, thank you again so much for joining us today. If individuals want to connect with you or your company, how could they reach out to you?
Yeah. We love having people reach out. We're on the interwebs. What a surprise. Whitetuque.com is our website. Tuque spelled Tuque. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm happy to have people connect with me there. We're always happy to lend a hand or a quick consult and just see if we can help
and have a conversation.
Absolutely.
Just have people share their story and concerns. Yeah. I'm going to make sure that we add that all to our show notes. And thank you again, and have an amazing day.
Thanks, Jules. I appreciate it.
Once again, a big thank you to Laura for joining us today on the Kynective Media Podcast and taking the time to share her insights, her experience, and her knowledge in cybersecurity. We really do hope you enjoyed this week's episode. You can continue to stay connected with her by finding her contact information in the show notes. And remember, keep staying connected and keep telling the stories that matter.